YouTube, how the heck you doing? This is Corey with Watcher REALMS. Now, this is going to be a should you summon video. This is kind of standard, at least I'm going to make it a standard, just to get my thoughts out on these banners so that if you're thinking about summoning, you have a decent idea as to whether you should or shouldn't summon. I'm going to kind of go ahead and do this from like the very beginners up until like super endgame whales, right? So yeah, let's just try it. So we have a couple of banners that are upcoming for this specific weekend. It doesn't look like we have any ancient banners coming this weekend, which is a really good sign because naturally it means we're probably going to get one next weekend. So that is to be expected. I would recommend just save as many ancients as you can, just kind of stock up, and typically just spend your ancients on those really big desirable banners. Now with these banners in particular, however, we do have the normal 2x banners, which are the crazy invocation of spirits and the crazy divine summoning. I personally recommend, if you are a beginning player, go ahead and use your summons on these two banners. It's always better to have a 2x chance of getting units, so you can maybe get additional ones in comparison to going and summoning on the normal special invocation of spirits banners and only having that 1x chance to get a unit, right, with the 15x multiplier. So yeah, if you're a new player, always go for the 2x banners. It's just better. Now we have a interesting banner specifically for the special invocation of spirits. We have a Hatssut and a Artemis banner. We have Scorch, which is absolutely useless. We have Olag, who is useless, and we have this dude right here, who is also absolutely useless. So if you're really summoning on this banner, you're mainly going for Hatssut and you're going for Artemis. In my opinion, I do think Artemis is still the best anti-healer in the game. He's going to be absolutely influential and really impactful in general when you are summoning for him, because you have the ability to use him for Gear Raid 1. And then not only just Gear Raid 1, he's also very impactful for Gear Dungeon 1 as well, in which you really need some good form of anti-heal. Otherwise, you need a really good Vierna to deal with the map. So in my opinion, if you do not have a form of anti-heal, it is more than advisable to summon for Artemis, because he's good, right? You can use him for that attack-based healing. He has a really good ultimate, in my opinion. I think, obviously, as I mentioned, he is the best anti-heal. I think you get about 20 seconds whenever it's fully skilled up of just pure anti-heal, which is really impactful because Gear Raid 1 as well. I mentioned Gear Dungeon 1, but Gear Raid 1 is kind of mandatory, especially whenever you're pushing for 22, 23, 24. Those units have a significant amount of resistances and a lot of HP, and you really need Artemis to just give you that anti-heal for an extended duration so that your other damage dealers, your Ingrid, your Vierna, your Boreas, your Valara, for example, Ymir, like the list goes on in terms of damage dealers for Gear Raid 1, but you need some really good anti-heal, and Lasir, who is the other anti-healer, just doesn't necessarily cut it. So I recommend, if you don't have any form of anti-heal, yeah, go ahead, try to summon, try to get Artemis. He's your best bet. Now, if you don't really care about having Artemis and you're really pushing for Hatssut, I will say I do think Hatssut to some extent has fallen off in terms of overall meta prevalence. Like, don't get me wrong, I know that she's still really good, especially for arena. Specifically, we're talking about like anti-air arena. That's where she thrives in. And then Guild v Guild, she's always going to be a staple in those Nightmare teams. And then for Gear Raid 3, she has obviously some viability up until about 21. Once you get to 22, 23, 24, she kind of starts to fall off in terms of overall strength, but she's still a fantastic unit. The main reason as to why she's good is because of her overall ultimate, which is going to be the Ghastly Burst, which is just doing a significant amount of AoE damage. She also has some good utility in the form of her stealth, which is about 55 seconds, I believe, if it's like fully scaled up. I could be wrong, but basically she's invisible for a good chunk of time, right? So that's the main reason as to why you would go for her. You're looking for some massive AoE damage within the form of a burst. You're really needing some additional utility from just being invisible for some time. That's what you're hoping for. In my opinion, I don't necessarily think that this banner in general is going to be super impactful for an account unless you're a newer player. If you're a newer player, obviously you want to go for this. It's going to give you two very critical units for your overall progression, but in my opinion, if you're already doing gear raid 1, 21, gear raid 2, gear raid 3, I would say maybe even if you're just able to do like Semra, like Titanic Ruins, you're probably not really missing out too much on a Hatssut or on a Artemis. You probably have those units already, right? So especially if you're a longer player, you definitely have these units because of how many times they have appeared in banners. Now we also have a 1+1. Now I personally think this is the quote-unquote best banner in general within Watcher Realms for just your normal summoning crystals. Go ahead and do it. I always recommend it. The chance to get a normal unit and then a Lord, for example, is definitely possible on these banners. I feel like I see it very, very often. However, you also have a lot of like disparity because you can go and summon on these banners and you can get like Cratch Azhor, or you can go and get Magnus Shamir, and then you're like, what the heck, right? So obviously I would say between the list of banners that are available as of right now, I would just say screw it, wait until Saturday, pull for the 1+1, call it a day, and then save your rest of your summons. However, I would only recommend doing any summons, and I kind of have to make this as like a preface. I would only summon on any of these banners if you have a substantial amount of summoning crystals remaining. I would really, really implore you, if you're summoning, to just make sure that you'll have enough for whenever Nezha comes out. Naturally, we have all seen the trailer at this point. I've not personally tested her on the test server yet. I'll let my thoughts be known whenever the time is right for that. But just in general, right, I do think you want to at least be a little bit cautious. And then also, real quick, I personally never recommend summoning with your divine crystals anymore because we keep seeing the Nation banners being for divines, and that's, in my opinion, a higher cost because it's a little bit more difficult to get to pity on divines in comparison to just your normal rare summoning crystals. So I would hold all divines, only summon your normal summoning crystals, and go from there. Anyways, that's my overall thoughts on these banners. I don't think that there's anything too crazy to write home about. I would just save as much as you can for the upcoming banners. And if you are a newer player, I always recommend maybe considering summoning on this banner for the Artemis or the Hatssut if you're missing them. If you are a mid player, like mid game, things like this, then yeah, of course the 1+1 can be kind of nice and you should push for that. But don't go broke. Don't go broke on summoning for these banners. They're just not too crazy, right? So yeah, see ya.